Imagine you are faced with an enemy you cannot defeat. Mongol tribes, descendants of the great Genghis Khan. Fast, ferocious, hungry, determined to take what they want, and spare no one. The question is, what are you going to do?
Where in all this madness is my army?
It is 1550, and China's richest dynasty is powerless in the face of terror.
We need a defensive solution. If you can come up with that, they might just listen.
From the ranks of the common soldier comes a hero. His name is Qi Jiguan. And this is the story of his vision to protect his nation. With the greatest defensive structure ever built.
This will be unlike anything seen before. A living, breathing entity.
The Great Wall of China. Yet the empire which invested its hope and resources in its greatest creation would ultimately fall. Betraying the general who created it, taking for granted the sweat and willpower of the common soldiers who manned it, trusting the politicians who never believed in it, forgetting that the wall itself would only be as strong as the people behind it. 5 centuries later, the secrets of the wall are being brought to light for the very first time.
This war is not about bricks.
The texts that reveal the genius of its creator. The people whose ancestors built it and are now rediscovering their heritage.
The Great Wall means so much to the Chinese people now.
The modern army, founded by Qi Jiguan, is now allowing us to study its origins for the first time. And in parts of the wall never filmed before, the very earth, stones, and bricks themselves finally tell their story. It is September 1550 in the Forbidden City, Beijing, imperial capital of the richest, most advanced empire of the age. Among the officer cadets taking their martial arts exams is 23-year-old Qi Jiguan, the man who will one day build the Great Wall. Today, his more modest goal is to become an officer in the Imperial Army. Qi was born into a military family. His father spent his life fighting the Mongols on the northern border. And for generation after generation, son has followed father in a seemingly endless guerrilla war. Qi knows that if he passes his exams, he can expect to follow the same path. But his destiny is about to be changed. A few kilometers north, Mongol horsemen cross the border. But this is not a border raid. Heading straight for Beijing is an invasion force, 100,000 strong. The outer suburbs of Beijing are quickly overrun, and every man in the city is mobilized for defense. Tens of thousands of Chinese already lie dead. Citizens are fleeing in panic to the gates of the Forbidden City. In the heart of the palace, the sound reaches the ears of the Emperor Beijing. It is the sound of humiliation, his own citizens terrorized, screaming for safety.
Open the city gates. Let as many in as we can take.
This way! The sound of war. The sound of war. But this is not glorious battle. This is shameful. A disaster. How could this happen?
The Mongols haven't yet reached the Forbidden City itself. But the fact that they've got this close means something somewhere has gone seriously wrong. One of the things designed to protect the capital was a wall. A defensive barrier which had stood for centuries. In fact, for almost 2,000 years since China's first emperor, successive dynasties had built walls to keep out and hold back the Mongols. And not just around Beijing, but all across the north of China. For thousands of kilometers, the land became studded with hundreds of pieces of wall. A uniquely Chinese solution to the age-old Mongol threat. Historian David Spindler has been studying the evolution of the Great Wall and the forces that shaped it. One of these forces is the Mongol people. Spindler has traveled over 1,000 kilometers from Beijing, the wild west of China. 500 years ago, this was the border with Mongol territory, and until very recently, still closed to foreigners. Spindler wants to know how the border was guarded in 1550 and understand the nature of the force that threatened it. His research has brought him to the town of Shako, a perfectly preserved time capsule that was once a Ming border town. And as their first ever Western visitor, Spindler is given a formal civic reception. These are the last traces of a Mongol culture that once defined this border region. they dance to the freedom of the horsemen on the steppe, a wild, romantic and dangerous presence. A presence forged in century after century of uneasy coexistence with their Chinese neighbors. Local historian Han Jiangcheng explains how the region was defended against Mongol attack.
2000多年来以后，所有的商队、驼队都是由此向西行走的。
The first surprise is how few soldiers were ever housed in this garrison to cover a vast stretch of border.
This really wasn't a massive garrison force by Ming Dynasty standards. There were originally supposed to be about 500 men garrisoned in this little fort right here, and the purpose of those men was to supply people for border defense all along the wall and to serve as a reservoir of people to go out to hotspots along the wall when they were attacked.
But the bigger surprise is the wall itself.
This is it. No bricks, no mortar, a lot different from the wall that most people think of. This wall is made of rammed earth, layers of tamped earth on top of each other. It was really just a thin, high earth wall. The defenders couldn't get on top of it to fight off the Mongols. So the main purpose of it was just to slow the Mongol attack.
Spindler has discovered that raids here, as elsewhere along the wall, were not military invasions. They were large-scale hit-and-run heists.
For the Mongols, their power lay in their speed and surprise. There would have been several tens of Mongols, maybe several hundreds of Mongols. They'd come to the border, dig open a section of this rammed earth wall, and then they would amass all things that the Mongols wanted and needed but couldn't produce in their own economy. It really was like a mugging. They were there very quickly. The next minute they were gone. And at that point the Chinese really had a very hard time fighting back.
Though Mongol raids affected thousands of kilometers of frontier, the combination of walls and garrison soldiers had always been just enough to contain an essentially local problem. But in the great Mongol assault on Beijing in 1550, the problem stopped being local and set in motion a sequence of events that would turn this into this. September 1550, and the suburbs of Beijing burn. Inside the Forbidden City, the government is in turmoil. There were meant to be walls and a vast army to protect them. Both seem to have failed. And there is one man who demands an explanation.
What a miracle! None of you has run away.
The Emperor Beijing.
I have had to listen to my people begging to be let into the city because they fear for their lives. I have had barbarians banging on the ending gate, the so-called gate of safety and security, demanding ransom for my life. I have been humiliated in my own court by your failure, and I have had enough. Now, I want some answers.
No one is in a hurry to offer an explanation, because no one knows how the Mongols broke through.
Get up, all of you!
If they had, the sense of embarrassment would be even greater. David Spindler has come to Beijing to see how and where the Mongols breached the city's defenses. For the last 15 years, he's traced every part of the original walls, matching each section to historical accounts of the attack. The line of wall runs 100 kilometers north of the capital, and manned by the Imperial Army, had for centuries been thought adequate to withstand any threat.
We're in a little valley just on the Mongolian side of the wall. Early in the day on September 26, 1550, several thousand Mongols attacked the main river valley just to our east here at Gubeikao. But that was really a typical Mongol maneuver. It was a diversionary feint. And what the Mongols did later that day was to spread disinformation that they were going to attack through a pass far to the northwest of here. The Chinese believed that, and what the Mongolians did was they simply sent a small commando unit up this valley. Their purpose was to get through the Chinese wall and get behind the main group of Chinese defenders, and as it were, unlock the door and let the main Mongol force in. This is it. The only thing separating Mongolia and China. The Mongols came through here. Several hundred Mongols broke over this wall, picked it apart with picks and shovels. One raider later said that getting in here was as easy as walking into a room. And that's just what they did. They went over this ridge here, around back behind the Chinese defenders, routed them, and then thousands of Mongols poured into the Beijing suburbs. The Chinese casualties are very heavy. 60,000 Chinese killed, 40,000 taken prisoner, hundreds of thousands of head of livestock were lost. We could call it the September 11th of this period of Ming history.
Not only has the wall proved inadequate to withstand Mongol attack, there is no sign of the great Imperial Army that is meant to repel them.
Where in all this madness is my army? Where are the soldiers who are supposed to be protecting the city? Where is the Minister for War? Because clearly we are in the middle of one.
We assume he's fighting the Mongols, Highness.
You assume? Go fight him!
Everyone is so preoccupied with the scale of the disaster, no one has yet thought to ask why the Mongols are here. Meanwhile, a figure arrives at the Forbidden City. It is not the returning Minister of War, but a Chinese prisoner sent to the Emperor by the mastermind of the attack, Mongol leader Altan Khan. A year ago, the Khan demanded diplomatic recognition and trading rights for his people. The request was arrogantly dismissed. His envoys killed. Now, with Mongol forces looting the suburbs of Beijing, the power balance has fundamentally shifted. The question is, does the imperial court, which has always lived in a precious world of its own, understand this new reality?
is this? What is this?
I was a prisoner of the Khan. I've been sent with a message for His Serene Highness.
A prisoner of the Khan with a message for Your Serene Highness.
Why did you not die defending the Emperor?
But I had no weapon. What do they want?
It's a request to pay tribute to Your Highness. In effect, a demand for trade.
I know what that means. No!
And it's in Chinese.
Well?
Surely, if this is a formal request from the Khan himself, it should be in Mongolian. We might easily doubt its authenticity, especially as it's come without an official Mongol envoy. Perhaps we should send it back.
Can we do that?
We might perhaps be able to buy ourselves some time.
Yes. Send it back. Let's have the bear dance to our tune for a change.
Reinflating the emperor's damaged ego, ministers demand the Khan resubmits his request for trade in the appropriate language, meanwhile assuming that the army will soon come to their rescue. It never does. By early October, the Mongols have gone. But having made the point they came to make, they have simply left of their own accord. And as is painfully obvious to Qi Jiguang, the Chinese are powerless to prevent them returning any time they choose. It is a humiliation he will never forget.
Pick him up.
It is clear to Qi that the great imperial army is not fit for purpose. In fact, of the 140,000 soldiers listed in Greater Beijing, barely half had been assigned to active duty. The Minister of War had avoided confronting Mongol forces he knew were vastly superior to his own. An inconvenient fact the court chooses to overlook.
So, according to the Ming history, the Minister of War, Yang Shouqian, was considered to have committed a crime and was cast away in the marketplace, which means that he was executed. So the Minister of War was the scapegoat for this debacle.
In China's National Archive, Professor Robin Yates examines the 40,000 pages of the Ming dynasty's own records to try to answer a question which has long occupied historians: how the richest dynasty in China's history could lack a credible defense.
The Ming Empire, in fact, was relatively successful. And as a consequence, people started to become interested in money and becoming merchants, and the military were disdained. And so when Qi was born, the military system of the Ming was in steep decline. Nobody wanted to become a soldier. But this was exactly the point, because of the wealth of the Ming, that foreigners, such as the Mongols, wanted to get a bit of the action themselves. So just at the point when the Ming was being successful, then it was under the greatest threat.
For Qi Jiguang, the question is what to do about it.
If this is to be ended, then we must put up a real fight. Not just here, but out there. They must be taught a lesson that can be felt from here to the edges of the world.
Robin Yates has found references in Qi's biography suggesting he had turned his fighting impulse into a coherent strategy. And Yates believes that at this stage, it had little to do with building walls.
Qi had come up with more than 10 strategies to drive out the Mongols. But unfortunately, there is nothing which tells us what those 10 plans were. And there's nothing in the Ming history either. So why is this? I think that the reason is that his plans were far too forceful. I think he wanted to go and have an active attack plan, offensive plan against the Mongols.
At court, they have other ideas. Realizing that they have no adequate defense, the government decides to give in to Mongol demands. And a series of trade deals is drawn up to appease Altan Khan. The man given the job of getting the emperor to sign them is a young government secretary, Zhang Zhuzhong.
Secretary Zhang, I sent a plan for the emperor's approval. Has he read it yet?
No, but I have.
You're keeping it from him?
No. I'd like him to read it, just as I'd like him to read rather more important documents.
I hardly think you have the rank to judge that, Master Zhang. May I have it back, please?
You forget yourself, Master Qi. And the folly of an impetuous war.
I think I know about warfare.
But you don't know about the court. A plan for an all-out war will not find favor, nor the money to make it happen. We need a defensive solution. Now, if you can come up with that, they might just listen.
Qi knows that whatever they choose to call the solution, it will need a better army than the one they have. In the meantime, Zhang takes the appeasement deal to be signed by the emperor.
These are papers for His Highness to sign. Important treaties. Please tell His Highness.
The emperor, however, now has his mind elsewhere. Having executed the war minister, he returns to his normal daily routine, taking drugs and having sex with as many concubines as possible.
Your Highness, if I could interrupt for the briefest of moments.
Zhang begins to realize that it may take a while to get the deals signed. And even then, trade alone may not protect them for long. They will still be at the mercy of Mongol aggression, unable to reject any future demands. He starts to see the value of a maverick, someone not yet corrupted by the failures of the system. A soldier, perhaps, with vision. He begins to re-evaluate Qi Jiguang. Given time, could he be the man to rebuild the nation's defense? If he is, Zhang knows he will have to prove his leadership skills first. In the spring of 1555, Qi finds himself over 1,000 kilometers from the Mongol border with a new challenge: to rid the country of Japanese pirates.
After Qi's 10-point plan had been rejected by the court, he was pretty much in limbo. But then the Japanese pirates started raiding all the way along the coast, and the court decided, well, why don't you try Qi Jiguang? Send him down, see if he can fix the problem.
It's not where he wants to be. Yet it is here that Qi's first step on the road to building the Great Wall will be taken, by creating a completely new kind of army. It is 1555. For 4 years, trade deals have kept the Mongol border relatively quiet. While China's south coast is in turmoil. For hundreds of kilometers, Japanese pirates loot and plunder coastal settlements. And so far, all military responses have come to nothing. Now, Qi Jiguang has been given the chance to succeed where others have failed. And the man who will one day build the Great Wall is about to lay its foundations by creating an army able to defend it. On paper, there are 120,000 men to fight the Japanese. But they are men like Gang Zhou. As local farmers, Zhou's family has owed military service to the district governor for generations. And so, like many others, he's listed as a soldier in the official records.
That's all? Everyone is here. Give me those papers. And the weapons? Where are all the weapons they're supposed to have?
This is all we have, sir.
Have any of you ever fought the Japanese with these weapons?
No, sir. We're farmers.
My orders say you're soldiers.
We're not trained to be soldiers.
Then you will be. Get them to the barracks. Start tomorrow.
We're not paid to be soldiers.
Then you will be that too.
Qi Jiguang realized that the military organization of the Ming really could not solve the problem. And so what he decided to do was to take and train a group of peasants and use this manual to train them to fight against the Japanese.
These original texts are one of China's greatest historical treasures. Written by Qi Jiguang himself as an instruction book for creating a modern professional army. In them, every step of his soldiers' training is written out in common Chinese language and illustrated for easy learning.
It was a very, very carefully thought out plan to use the skills, the native skills of the ordinary farmers, coupled with the latest military technology. Qi then trained essentially an army of 3,000 men who were completely devoted to him. And it was known as Qi's family army.
The measure of his success is this: the People's Liberation Army, the largest standing army in the world. And 400 years after Qi Jiguang, it still calls itself the Great Wall of Iron and Steel. Robin Yates has come to meet serving military commander General Zhao Xin at his base in central China. The first time a Western academic has been allowed into the heart of China's military. But Zhao is also an historian and wants to share his insights on the man he regards as the founder of the modern Chinese army. 500 of Zhao's men demonstrate part of their basic training, collective martial arts, a practice that began with Qi Jiguang.
General Zhao basically feels that there were sort of three main elements to Qi Jiguang's achievements. And the first is, in a sense, creating a people's army. The second is the importance of the training making sure that the individual obeyed the commanding officer. So his eyes, his ears, his heart, his legs, his limbs, all of them were working for the commanding officer. The third point is that all of these men have to work as a unit. And the modern Chinese army has to be trained in the same way. The morale or the spirit, the technology, and the physical training has to work all together. And Qi Jiguang's main achievement was linking all these three elements to create a sort of new modern army.
Qi knew that a viable army would be the first essential part of any national defense. And though he could not see it, the first foundation stone in the Great War. But laying that foundation would not be easy. On one recorded occasion, trying to retake a position from Japanese pirates, Qi faces defeat. Knowing that for his new army to succeed, discipline is everything. Qi must decide how far he is prepared to go to instill that discipline.
What he specifies very, very clearly is that you cannot have a single soldier turn his head and a single soldier be afraid. Because that will affect the discipline, the morale of the entire unit. And so, as a soldier, he orders that anybody who does that, who turns their head, will be cut down immediately, especially their officers.
Stop! Why are you withdrawing? Turn around and fight! Who gave the order to stop?
The leader said we can't do it. They're better than us.
Now! Stop there!
Well, you can die like dogs, or you can fight like men. But you don't run. Now move! Let's go!
The skill and discipline Qi instills in his army leads to victory after victory over the Japanese. The first solid success for nearly a century against either of China's military powers. And while the enemy in the south is being vanquished, the enemy in the north has returned. The Mongols are back. For years, the old emperor tried to back out of his trade deals with the Mongols, without the defenses to withstand the backlash. Once more, those defenses have failed, and once more, the outskirts of Beijing are being plundered.
Tens of thousands have been slaughtered.
The job of responding to the renewed threat now falls to Minister Zhang Zhuzhong.
I will, of course, keep you duly informed.
And now there is a new and inexperienced emperor on the throne, 31-year-old Long Qing.
The emperor is brought up in the palace by concubines and eunuchs, completely untested, exactly the moment when, of course, the Mongols could see that this was their opportunity to exert a little more pressure to get what they wanted out of China.
Zhang knows they need to solve the Mongol problem once and for all. So he turns to the young soldier he first sponsored 17 years ago, now General Qi Jiguang. In late 1567, having accomplished his mission in the south, Qi returns north to Beijing, the leader of a victorious army. He is now ready to face the ultimate challenge, defeating the Mongols. He recalls his first instinctive response to their savagery.
They must be taught a lesson that can be felt from here to the edges of the world.
But Qi is no longer sure an army on its own will be enough.
In the past, the generals really had decided, well, they thought, if they could just get enough soldiers, get enough cavalry, drive out into the steppes, they could defeat the enemy. But the problem was, what tended to happen with an offensive plan was that the soldiers would ride out, but then after 2 or 3 days, they'd run out of supplies, and the Mongols could just ride around them and cut them down. So Qi realized that you had to have a better system of integrating the different types of forces.
Before he reaches Beijing, Qi comes up with the beginnings of a new solution. He first tries to imagine a way of containing the Mongols. Then starts to conceive a structure that will resist attack, but allow his own forces through to engage the enemy. And an image forms. Not just a single wall, but layer upon layer of fortresses connected by walls. A vast defensive network, a new Great Wall complex. What had once been rocks and compacted earth would now be brick and stone. What had once been simple platforms to stand on would now be complex towers, fortresses for his men, storehouses, arsenals, gun platforms, beacons, refuges, home to tens of thousands of soldiers. And where dynasty after dynasty had built pieces of wall to keep out the Mongols, now, finally, in Qi's vision, the Ming wall would be whole. No gaps, no weak links. And built along the most formidable mountain ranges, a man-made fortress on top of a natural barrier. A truly great wall. And the most ambitious project in China's history. If there is to be any chance of getting the court to pay for it, Qi and Minister Zhang Zhuzhong must first persuade the emperor. And he has plenty of other solutions on offer.
An expeditionary force to invade the steppe from here and here, to teach them a lesson. And we have means to do it with the Qi's army.
If we win. But if we launch a war and we lose, what then? With your army gone, we'll have no protection and risk bringing down the wrath of the Khan on us all.
Perhaps we should hear from our general about his intentions.
Please, General, tell them.
My preference is always to attack an enemy.
You see?
So you agree with the idea of a great offensive campaign? No, I think there's a more effective solution. Rather than chasing after Mongols, we let them come to us.
They do it now, and they take what they want.
But if next time we make them pay an unacceptable price, we make them think again.
It really is just a matter of basic economics.
It's more basic than that. If you come to rob my home, and I know you are coming, and I am waiting for you and armed, I can strike you with all my force where I am strong and protected. Therefore, my solution is to use my army, the most powerful army this nation has ever had, as a repulsion force.
And where do you put your army, General? Here, in the capital?
No, on the wall. The key is hollow towers, 3,000 of them, each one with a platoon of 50 soldiers, each one linked with a signal system of beacons to warn of enemy approach.
And who will pay for this new wall? And the army on it?
Who's paying now? Who's paying for our inability to defend ourselves?
This new wall will be unlike anything seen before. It will be a living, breathing entity. Without my men on it, it cannot work. And without it, I cannot protect you.
Everyone knows that the cost of building a wall on the scale Qi demands will be astronomical. But offered the possibility of a final solution to the Mongol problem, the Emperor gives his consent. The wall will be built. It is 1569, and Qi Jiguang's Great Wall project begins with bricks. Hundreds of new brick factories are hurriedly set up to supply the first phase of tower construction. At the height of production, an average factory is producing 500,000 bricks a week, requiring 5 kilos of earth and lime and 7 kilos of wood for every one. There is no secret formula to the bricks. Each site must use local materials fired with wood from surrounding forests. And as part of the Great Wall, every single one must be guaranteed the highest possible quality.
This brick here says the 12th year of the Wanli reign, which is 1584. And this is Zhending, which is a place in western Hebei, which is the place where this military company came from. The inscriptions would give the particulars of that wall building project, and the point of doing that was to hold the people in charge of that project responsible if something happened to that wall in 3 years, 5 years, 8 years.
David Spindler has come to the eastern end of the Great Wall at Shanhai Guan, where 500 years after the wall was built, much of it is being rebuilt. And the repair work gives Spindler the chance to look inside the structure itself to see how it was made.
On the interior of the wall is a rammed earth wall. Layers and layers of rammed earth, about 15 centimeters thick, were built up to create a wall like what we're seeing here. Now, later on, bricks were used in Ming Dynasty wall construction, and when that was done, the bricks were simply added to the outside of the pre-existing rammed earth wall. These bricks are this size, about 40 centimeters long, and in between the bricks is this mortar. The mortar is made up of cured lime or slaked lime, cured in a kiln, and water. The advantages of using brick as a construction method are that brick is a standard size, easily movable. You can build wall in a variety of terrains. You can build it in steep terrain because you can hold it in place. You can build peepholes. You can build crenellations, the U-shaped openings for archers to look out of. The brick wall has the advantage of being much more flexible.
And to get those bricks to where they can be used, an army of laborers is needed. Qi Jiguang's own army. Gang Zhou started his military career in the south, transformed from peasant farmer to skilled soldier as part of Qi's new model army. Now, like thousands of his comrades, he's on the northern border, assigned to building the wall.
This is an example of a brick that was used in a late Ming Dynasty wall building project. It's very heavy, it's about 20 kilograms. We don't know how they were moved. I've seen one reference in all of my readings to a brick-carrying horse. Other than that, probably lots of human power was used in moving these bricks up into the hills. If I was faced with the task of having to bring one of these up to the wall, I'd think it's pretty heavy. It's not a job I'd want.
Qi's plan calls for 3,000 towers, spaced every few hundred meters, along a wall 1,000 kilometers long, 10 meters high, and 3 meters wide. In some places, new towers are added to old sections of wall, and the wall rebuilt. Elsewhere, solid turrets are replaced with open towers, a new wall built between. But always, the wall follows a strategic line across the tops of the mountains. For this monumental task, Qi is given just 5 years and 20,000 men.
So Qi decides that in order to achieve this, he's got to organize his men into companies of about 250 men each. And they are going to build for him 70 towers in that year. That means that each company has to build 1 tower every 5 days. These men have got to work day and night without stopping for the entire year. But Qi had the great advantage of using the troops that he had disciplined, trained himself, and brought them up, and he could rely on their competitiveness to build the wall within the time limit that the court had given him.
The Great Wall project is more ambitious than anything the Ming Empire has ever undertaken. By the late 1570s, it is consuming more than 3/4 of the government's income. But there is another cost that doesn't appear in the accounts: the human cost.
They were, far from their families. They were just working together as an entire unit. It must have been extremely hard, extremely difficult, very, very heavy work and exhausting beyond speech.
The pressure is on Qi to deliver. And the one force he knows he can keep driving as hard as he needs is his own army. But there are limits. Malnutrition, exhaustion, and disease take their inevitable toll. And for those who die far from home, fellow workers become family, scattering token money to pay for a friend's passage to the next world, to rest at last.
We buried Fong today. He was from the south, like me. He had a family, somewhere. My love, we're so hungry and exhausted all the time. I sometimes think death would be a relief. But that would be a betrayal of you. So I carry on for your sake. I've heard They'll make us stay and serve on the wall when it is finished. So even if I survive building the damn thing, I may have to stay and defend it.
For centuries, workers like Gang Zhou have been the forgotten heroes of the wall. Who they were and where they came from has rarely been recorded. Histories of these men have been almost totally unknown until now. Wang Tao is an archaeologist from London University, used to digging in the ground for evidence of the past. In the Great Wall, he faces a challenge. The most revealing insights are found not so much in the bricks as in the descendants of the people who laid them. And that is what he has come to find. Outside a village to the east of Beijing called Dongjiakou, he takes a tour with local historian Zhang Heshan. Zhang takes Tao on a climb 1,000 meters up and 500 years back to the heart of the wall-building project. The past here lives because of the efforts of men like Zhang. 40 years ago, he discovered the building records of each tower carved on stone stele in San. The stones themselves were removed during the Cultural Revolution, but not before Zhang had made copies.
The most important stone stele was placed in one of these towers just over there, and the names of all the important officials who are involved in this construction are recorded here, including General Qi Jiguang. And on the back, there are all the names of the ordinary workers, builders, carpenters, all related to the reconstruction, and their descendants may actually live in the local village, become a part of the local history.
The end of the climb is what Zhang is most proud of, and what makes this section of wall unique. Every single tower in the district is named after a family in the village.
Mr. Zhang is saying this is called a Zhang family tower, and it's constructed by General Qi Jiguang. And he recruited about 9,000 soldiers from south, from Zhejiang, Yiwu, and Mr. Zhang's ancestor was among those 9,000 soldiers. That is why this one is called the Zhang family tower. 那你父祖上是就是守这个楼吗？
对，就这个张家楼。
张家楼。您对这个张家楼的，我们上您家看一看。看看。这个门楼很漂亮。
The actual lives of the soldiers can only now be reached through the folk memory of the villagers. And because every village name has a tower and a history to go with it, Zhang has started recording the oral history of the entire village, one family at a time. Starting with Mr. Law Zhanhua.
Most interestingly is that Mr. Law's great-great-grandfather's tomb is still there, still very close to the wall, and that can go back to Ming Dynasty. And they have about almost over 20 generations all kind of lived in this village. And when they come here, they were southerners, and they actually they didn't mix up with the northerners, the locals. And a story they were talking about was that one year there was a famine and no food, and all the locals were coming to the wall, and the Zhang family tower and the Luo family tower, they were kind of fighting over basically it's fighting over very little food to survive.
我是听说过的。
And I can probably imagine many people would die.
综艺报国4个大字。
这个故事您知道吧？
For any monumental project, team discipline is vital. And when it breaks down, for whatever reason, it must be seen to be restored. Examples, however painful, must be set.
Faster!
For the good of the war.
Get them on their knees. Heads down. Draw your swords.
What's going on here? Why have you stopped working?
Put down your swords. Sir, there was a fight. We're making an example out of the ringleaders. But don't worry, sir. We'll make up the lost time.
That depends how many times you have to do this, doesn't it? Haven't you enough to do without fighting? You. What's your excuse?
We haven't got enough food to go around. We're worked to death and treated like slaves. Is that what we are?
No. You're my soldiers. Paid workers. All of you.
We only get half of what we owed. What's the point of money when you're dead?
You're working to protect the empire. Yes, there are hardships. But as a soldier, I am prepared to sacrifice myself, my life, to protect my home and my people. Those of you who have fought with me, you know that. You know what it means
There's
to
no
be a
men here who will not die to protect our families and our homes. But they are 1,000 miles away. All we see is bricks and stones. This is not a battlefield. It is not even our home. This is just one long headstone for a million graves.
On his knees. Bring out the swords. Sir, on your command.
The wall will not build itself. And it will not defend itself either.
Send them back to work. And get them some food from somewhere. I don't care where. Cha!
Put down your swords. Set them free.
Xi's new design was, in a way, revolutionary. It used a new structural form, but Xi realized that without the men to build it and to exploit its potential, it was absolutely nothing.
Qi issues orders for soldiers' families to be allowed to join them and settle along the length of the Great Wall. Having once turned farmers into soldiers, he returns those soldiers to the land to live, build, and fight for their homes.
94个，勾3个。
哦，
The fact
那
that
他
men
养
like
那么多
Mr.
小孩，
Law
他
are
生
here
活
shows
不
the
影响他的
policy
生活吗？
worked.
他现在不住在家里吧
But？as Wang Tao discovers, its success owed much to the resilience and fortitude of the men themselves.
那如果是以后小孩可能孙子还会当上，我们一直聊那个，对对，说
At
来说
Dong
话，就您
Jiako,
家里面那个
starvation
现
had
在的话，
threatened the
你
lives
自
of
己
the
还是
soldiers and the future of
这
the
些树
project
都是都能长的，这
until
些
Mr.
果子都
Law's
能吃吗？
ancestor saw a solution.
这个就是吧，这个
就是这样，
哦，
这就是这
对。When his ancestor first arrived here, there was a food shortage, and people were fighting over a very little bit of food. And then they discovered the apricot trees. Mr. Law's ancestor and the other soldiers began to gather the wild apricots and for food. And later on, they decided they want to plant them. So they gathered loads of them and then planted them all along the wall. And so, as you can see now, the whole landscape and the whole mountain is full of apricot trees.
And for Mr. Law's ancestor, the gesture he inspired not only averted starvation, but ensured the Law family would be here for centuries to come.
这就是我们这祖坟那个立那个碑。
哦，这字上面还
The
能看得
grave
清楚
of
啊。
Law's ancestor
那
lies
个
directly
你
beneath the family
那还
tower.
能看得清楚。
对，浙江金华
Its
义
inscription
乌，
barely
等于
visible
就是
after
说你们
500
祖
years.
上是跟那个戚家军一块儿过来的。
But for Wang Tao,
在这
it's a chance to connect
在
with
到
an
明
actual
永
war
乐
god.
2年。
哦。This is extraordinary. It's Mr. Law's family or ancestral tomb, and the title here it's actually say the important or highly important ancestor Lord Law was buried here, and obviously Mr. Law, his ancestor, was the garrison commander of this tower. That's why it's called a Law family tower. This is a family personal story, which I have never known. And then now, standing together with Mr. Law, the descendant of the soldier Law, close to Law family tower, I think it's just bring me really back to the whole history, and also the people who kind of as part of war, and then I feel a kind of I'm becoming part of as war as well.
Today, the entire Law family comes to honor their illustrious ancestor with offerings for his spirit. And to plant, in his memory, a single apricot tree. A memorial to one soldier who helped build the Great Wall. By 1575, the first sections of Qi Jiguang's wall are complete. His dream is becoming a solid and impregnable reality. On it stands an army he is trained to exploit its strength. An army now 20,000 strong, devoted to him. The young soldier who once dreamed of serving the empire has now created its ultimate defense system. Not only is it the most ambitious, it is also the most expensive project of the age. And with the hopes of an entire dynasty riding on its success, it had better work. By the mid-1570s, the Great Wall is advancing at a rate of a new tower every 5 days. Yet Qi Jiguang knows it will be tested by Mongol attack long before it is complete. In the Beijing archives is a remarkable set of maps showing how Qi's Great Wall defenses were designed to work.
Out to the far northwest, you see a pass between two mountains through which the Mongols would normally trade or raid. Then you have a series of outward observation points. Then you have a series of beacon towers, signal towers, and they are on the top of a range of hills. Then you have the Great Wall with all the forts. Then behind that are the headquarters of the various brigades of Qi's soldiers. If there was an attack, they would march out to the Great Wall to defend it, or even go further. So what Qi was able to develop was a very complex system. The wall functioned in different ways. And the men had to have an understanding of their function in the total system.
Guangzhou is now part of Qi's defense line, in an observation unit in front of the wall. One of Qi's greatest innovations is to introduce cannons, copied from Western models and now manufactured in China, an integral part of wall defense. The unit's job is to intercept and slow any attack, while at the same time alerting the wall defenses. No one knows how well this new system will work. But on this March day in 1575, the perfect opportunity to find out materializes from out of the steppe.
They're coming! Nelson, get yourselves organized!
While Mongol raiders charge towards the outer defenses, on the wall, the alarm signal triggers a well-rehearsed response. Men and cannons are mobilized in minutes. Advanced units is to try to slow the attack. But the Mongols keep their eyes on a bigger prize. Settlements around the town of Dongjiang, where Qi Jiguang himself happens to be stationed. Inside the wall, the warning system has alerted the main garrison, and a counterforce is mobilized. This is the moment of truth for Qi and the wall. Whether the attacking force might try to scale the wall or break through the unfinished sections, no one will ever know. The historical records recount that Qi's force was able to meet the invaders beyond the wall, where his superior forces could be made to come. brother of Mongol leader Chang Hang. The Battle of Dongjiakou is won, and it is a defining moment for Qi Guang. He has proved that his Great Wall system works, with him at its head, inspiring the victory. At court, those who have criticized his project are silenced, at least for now. And the wall is declared a success. For his personal heroics, Qi is rewarded with 2 kilos of silver and the personal gratitude of the emperor. It's an encouraging start. But Qi Guang is looking to the future. When his wall is finally complete, he will be the gatekeeper of the north. And potentially more than just another general. A few days after the battle, a chance to play the role of statesman appears, in the shape of Mongol leader Chang Ang, returning to the wall to bargain for the release of his brother.
Is he still alive?
Yes.
If I were to make an offering to secure my brother, who is the man I must make it to? Is it the emperor? Through you? Or is it you?
It's me.
So what does it cost to get my brother back?
Your brother can go free. If we can be free of you. If you can guarantee that we will no longer have to pursue you and run you down, then yes, you can have him.
Despite their agreement, the same tribe will renege on its deal and attack again. But again, the wall will defeat them. Unbreakable, its brooding power sends a clear and unmistakable message that the Ming Empire can and will defend itself. And over time, the growing security brings something new to the border. The first signs of peace. On some of the towers in Dongjiakou, there are the unmistakable marks of domesticity. Clear evidence that some soldiers had the time and inclination to decorate their homes. Perhaps, as Wang Tao believes, under the influence of their wives.
Before I came here, I thought these towers were just military tower. When I came here and visit these towers, I feel it's home. Of course, it has its function as military device, but if you look both sides of the wall, you actually see, no, it's not. It's actually very much part of people's life and home life, because when you walk down the cliff You walk in your own fields and you see your own wife, your own kids, and then actually we can see in Chinese history it happens all the time. People being uprooted, rerouted, and I think the Great War has rerouted so many people and has created a new life for so many people.
Guangzhou is now a senior member of Qi's garrison and has settled his family in the village below the wall, now part of a new and growing frontier population. In what was once only a conflict zone, inhabited by raiders and soldiers, agriculture thrives and the population grows. A peace dividend of the Great War. It gives Qi the confidence to demand the funds to finish his great project. So far, only 1,200 of his originally planned 3,000 towers have been built. The wall will only continue to work, he warns the court, if he is allowed to complete it. However, in Beijing, the cost is already ringing alarm bells. So far, 1,200 towers and 1,000 kilometers of wall have consumed 550 tons of silver, 2.5 times the Treasury's income for the last decade. For many, it is proof that Qi's project was always overambitious.
Basically, Qi had, in a sense, solved the problem. But still, when it's successful and you can keep the peace for 15 years, then people start to say, well, why are we wasting so much time, money, and effort against what is, essentially a nuisance? Maybe, just a few raids by Mongols, that was not going to be too problematic.
Oblivious to the court's concerns, Qi looks ahead to the next phase. He turns once more to the man who has always supported him, who has always pulled the strings in court to provide him with funds, Grand Secretary Zhang Zhuzhang. But the more Qi demands from Zhang, and the more Zhang tries to give him, the more their power is seen by the court as a threat.
Qi and Zhang Zhuzhang had their enemies at court. They were just simply waiting, biding their time.
And at last, that time has come. There is a new emperor on the throne who listens to these new counselors.
The great danger, as was always the danger throughout Chinese history, was if a powerful courtier linked with an equally powerful general. In Chinese, that was the military and the civil getting together. This is what always brought down a dynasty.
Looking for ammunition to destroy the Qi-Zhang alliance, their enemies find it in the Great Wall financial records.
Grand Secretary.
I hope you're not going to ask for more money. I can't help you. Do you know what they're saying about me? Grand Secretary Zhang has cheated the imperial person. He has plagued the population with taxes, accepted bribes, sold government officers, and advanced his henchmen. That's you, by the way.
What do they say about me?
I said, Majesty, those henchmen preserve the empire and your imperial person in continued safety.
What do they want? They demanded protection while protection costs. You only know it's worth paying for and it doesn't work. Tell them that. Tell them we need more towers.
Don't even think it. There is an indictment on me for charges of corruption. Did you know that? All it needs is for the emperor to sign it into proclamation.
And what am I supposed to do?
If I were you, I'd stay away from me.
As the emperor's former tutor, Zhang is spared prosecution for the time being. But for the next few years, Qi's ally remains under attack. Until worn down by the ceaseless strain, Zhang Zhuzhang dies. The partnership that built the wall is broken. Now, with his only political ally gone, Qi himself is open to attack. And the most effective weapon at his enemy's disposal is his alliance with Zhang.
A provincial examiner in Zhang's employ confessed that Zhang had placed before candidates to imperial office
in court,
a question
Zhang's crimes are re-examined, and a conspiracy with Qi is discovered.
A clear attempt to create a suitable atmosphere for an impending takeover. Furthermore, and I quote, General Ji Jiguang is to make his army available. We can only surmise what for. That before his death, Grand Secretary Zhang Zhuzhang had plotted to take over the throne.
I find it hard to believe that my old tutor had the intention of usurping me from my throne. Yet, it is clear that he and Commander-in-Chief Qi Jiguang have had the capacity to do so. This is too ominous to be ignored. I mourn the loss of Grand Secretary Zhang, and can only assume that he has been blinded in his old age by the overwhelming ambition of Qi Jiguang. He has violated the divine principle of balance. We have had enough of Qi's demands. We have had enough of walls.
Stand by! 1, 2.
For years after Zhang's fall, life on the wall has gone on as normal for soldiers like Zheng Zhou. Yet Qi's political enemies in Beijing have not been idle. And now they are ready to make their move. Qi has years of correspondence from Zhang, in which he promises Qi his personal support and hints at deals done behind the scenes. Words that in the wrong hands could be twisted to look like conspiracy. So Qi puts them beyond reach. And a lifetime of friendship and the record of their wall-building partnership is erased. It was Qi's ambition that drove him to build the wall for the sake of the empire.
Get back to your first position.
Yeah.
Now the empire fears that ambition so much, it is ready to get rid of it.
You and you, go.
The only question that remains is how they will do it. If a case of treason can be made against Qi, he will be summoned for trial, and public disgrace will be followed by private execution. But Qi is ready to defend his record.
Regional Commander Qi Jiguang is to step down with immediate effect.
He has underestimated them. There will be no trial, no chance in court to speak the truth. Just quietly sacked.
Sure.
For common soldiers like Gang Zhou, the end of Qi defies all reason. The army is losing its father.
General, he doesn't remember me. The great captain is gone.
Qi Jiguang retires to his hometown. Within the year, he is dead. He leaves behind 1,000 kilometers of Great Wall and towers, the most comprehensive defensive line in China's history. But still not finished as he intended, and with him no longer there to make it work.
Qi Jiguang was the heart and soul of the wall. You needed a man with Qi's vision to use the wall not only as a static barrier, but as an offensive weapon against the Mongols. Once Qi was gone, then the Ming just retreated behind the walls. The real problem then was the Ming did not know what was happening outside the wall.
Outside the wall, the Mongols were teaming up with a new enemy, the Manchu Empire, the next dynasty in waiting. It is 1644, more than 50 years since the death of Qi Jiguang. The Great Wall system he built still stands. Yet behind it, the empire is crumbling. Crippled by the weight of defense costs. Now corruption in court, neglect of defense, and peasant revolt push the Ming dynasty to the brink of collapse. And beyond the wall, the Manchu army is coming.
The Manchus were a much more organized and unified force than the Mongols. They moved in systematically. They launched raids on China in 1636 and 1638 as they moved in on the Chinese Empire.
Sweeping down from the northeast, the Manchu approached the Great Wall at Shanhaiguan, where historian David Spindler enters the town from the Chinese side, heading for the most fortified gate in the history of the wall, once called the first pass under heaven. It is here, on May the 27th, 1644, that the Great Wall is finally breached, without a single drop of blood being spilled. On the same day, 500 kilometers west in Beijing, Emperor Chongzhen, the 16th Ming Emperor, leaves his palace for the first and last time in his life. His empire, riven with rebellion and corruption, is bankrupt. He is drunk.
In the spring of 1644, the capital of Beijing was taken over by a Chinese rebel leader. So at that time, the Chinese Empire was not a functioning entity. The country was really in collapse.
Inside the town, Chinese rebels have taken control, and the garrison commander is ordered to surrender.
His back was quite literally up against the inside of this wall, and he called for help from outside of the wall, which is quite ironic because the people outside of the wall are the ones that it was built to defend against.
The most impregnable defenses in China's history, never once taken by force, are now open to let the enemy inside, in a last desperate bid to save the failing enemy.
This is an exciting place to be because I know that this is where it happened. I'm in one of the three places through which the Manchus streamed on May 27th, 1644. They overran the country and they stayed. And they ruled China for the next 200 or so years.
As the Ming era closes, the Great Wall experiment closes with it. The coming centuries are marked by more outside threats. Yet this time invasions do not come overland from the north, but from the wider world across the oceans. And so for hundreds of years, the fabric of the wall decays. Today, the skeleton of the great dragon is all that remains of the beast that once lived. But its spirit lives on. Not just in the bricks and stones, now being restored across hundreds of kilometers, but in the Great Wall of iron and steel, the modern army that protects China today. Ultimately, the Chinese people themselves.
I am just emotionally overwhelmed by a creation that has lasted for hundreds of years.
The Great Wall means so much to the Chinese people now. It's a symbol of the strength, the history, the culture, the future as well. I think you have to say what a wonderful achievement for the Chinese people.